everybody, it's Safi and Marco, dish out on the movies, and guess what? We're reviewing another
Texas Chainsaw movie. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Beginning.
which is a prequel to the whole darn thing.
To the remake. And let's start off, because this is something that surprised me, and it's sad because it seems like the more trivia you learn, the more it's like looking at the wizard behind the curtain, because apparently they weren't going to make any sequel to the remake or a prequel. They weren't going to make anything, Safi. I mean, what the fuck?
You don't need to swear about it, but I mean,
it's irritating.
It's very inconsistent.
It's the same thing with the X-Files, where it's like, okay, well, it ended after season 5. Like, what a bunch of lazy asses. But what happened was, there were all these fans, and they had all these questions. They said, how did this happen? How did that person get that way? And they said, can't you at least make a prequel where you explain how things got the way they were in the remake? And they said, okay, we'll make a prequel. And they had to pay $3 million just to keep the rights to the series, because Dimension wanted to buy them and ruin it like they ruin everything. And so they made this prequel movie. So, Safi, you start the beginning of the review of TCM The Beginning.
Well, you have young people.
Really?
In their early 20s. They're out, but they're not joyriding or anything. They have been in Mexico. They got some popped.
What?
And
that's not this movie. That's the remake.
Oh, yeah. That's right. I'm getting confused, but you still have young people about the same age. And the thing about them is the two boys, I believe they're brothers, although they don't look anything alike. And even if they aren't, they're both going to go to Vietnam. Their number has been called, and so they're on their way to go to wherever it is that they're going to go. And so it's they both have their girlfriends with them, so there isn't any fifth person. It's the two couples. And of course, along the way, we have an accident of some kind. No, we stop, we have an accident, and we start going. It's the beginning of the beginning, where it's the Texas Chainsaw Massacre strikes again.
Yeah. And
we explain about the factory meaning the processing plant, meat packing factory. I don't know, it's an all-in-one thing where the cow comes in, they kill it, they cut it up, and it's processed, ready to go to wherever. And the manager is horrible. This worker is in there, and it looks like terrible conditions, and which is true if you read some of the old historical even literature about this. And well, I think she's giving birth. I couldn't tell.
Yes, Safi, she gave birth.
And he wouldn't even let her leave to have the baby. She's way overweight. And so I really wasn't sure what was going on.
She needed a bathroom break.
Yeah, she needed more than a bathroom break, but he wouldn't let her, and he was just like, it wasn't that he was hulking and bigger than her. He was just like a weaselly jerk kind of man. So
that was pretty interesting, and it's sad because that was really the most underdeveloped part of the film, and it's sad because, as we've talked about before, I believe, it's a great place to set horror movies in. It's a great place to learn about the history of slaughterhouses and the conditions. And
yeah, it wasn't just in some, Chicago. It was here in the middle of nowhere, which if you go out into Kansas, if you go out west, you see yard after yard after yard of cows getting ready for slaughter. It used to be probably a lot worse or a lot bigger, more involved, more slaughterhouses or more slaughter yard. Well, I don't know what the yards are called, where all the cows are gathered to go. And this is in the country, in the middle of nowhere, in Texas.
And I thought that was probably the weakest part of the movie, because it was just so underdeveloped, because they wanted to move forward to the juice of the plot, to the teenagers getting killed by Leatherface plot. You know, they really kind of skipped through that like a lot more than they should have. I kind of wanted to see more of that. And they showed it in the intro, kind of, which I thought was cool. You know, they showed Leatherface, and he had bandages on his face and all this stuff. And it just, I don't know. It was an interesting element of the film that should have been explored more, to me. If it was like a...
They didn't have to spend a lot of time, but they could have, done more.
Well, you know, they could have had like a montage where they have a scene where he's 10 and he's in the slaughterhouse watching people, and then he's 15, then he's 20, then he's 25, then he's 30. Because apparently, I guess he is supposed to be 30 in the film, Leatherface.
I didn't know that, but yeah, he is older.
So they could...
He's not a teenager, and he's not a kid. He is older.
They could have done that, and he's not a woman, too.
Yeah.
Which I saw last night.
And so it starts from there, and of course they meet up by unfortunate sheriff accidents. And
what'd you think about the movie, Safi?
Well, I thought it was a pretty good horror movie. The only thing I don't want to say. I don't know. Should I say the was one major thing I didn't like about it, but that was my personal taste or preference.
Well, just say you didn't like the ending.
I didn't like the ending.
Yeah.
Okay, but for a horror movie, I thought it was really good. And I'm not really scared or affected by it, because I've seen so many of these that I mean, just right lately in preparation for this new one coming out, that I know that something bad's going to happen.
It's not scary. The original film was the scariest.
Yeah, when you first watch the original film, yeah. And actually, this was, I don't know, this might be even scarier, because it was kind of gorier, I thought, and
well, and the thing about not showing things, quote unquote, which all these people, they're like, oh my God, it's so much better when they don't show anything happen, because if they show something, it's not scary.
Well, yeah, it is, because if it's scary, one thing that was scary, and I can't really go into it, but I can just gloss over, and it's what isn't said, and it's what's shown.
Yeah.
And that...
Show, not tell.
And you don't have to.
Safi.
And it is a scene or an event in the movie that you don't have to say any words.
Let's just compare.
You just show it.
I'm going to compare...
It's a horror-filled moment that lasts a little while.
Let's compare two things. In the original, there was the scene where the boyfriend was on the table and the girlfriend was on the hook and she was watching, and he took the chainsaw and he sawed through him off camera, and they zoomed into his face and you hear her screaming. It really wasn't that scary, because for a lot you don't know what he's doing. Like, is he just sawing to kill him? Is he just sawing
Is he torturing him?
I don't know what's
killing
going
him?
on. I don't know what's going on. But then in the remake, there's an amazing scene. It's probably one of the greatest kills in the series, if not the greatest kill, where there's this biker and he's going to try and shoot the sheriff, and Leatherface takes his 35-pound chainsaw and knocks hits him in the arm and knocks him on the ground on the chainsaw, and then he starts the chainsaw and saws him in half. And, like, sorry, but that's just such a better kill and such a better scene, because you know what's happening, and you know that, like, it was scary because that was another, like, character, like in the remake, where he was very strong, and you thought, oh, he's a biker guy. He's got to defeat them. And he's knocked virtually useless by Leatherface and the sheriff. And so I thought that was a great moment, and it really, just when you compare those moments, Safi, what, don't you agree with that? Like, one is better than the other.
Yeah, it just depends on the visual. It's a movie. It should be like that.
And there's actually another thing in the original which is weird, which is the character of Pam. She Leatherface hangs her on a meat hook, and then later on in the film she's in the freezer, and she kind of jumps out of the freezer and shakes around, and you don't really know if she survived or not, or like what's going on. It's like really weird. Like what? Like it's so minimalistic that you just don't know. And so it's not really that scary, whereas in this it's a lot scarier. But it's not the scariest movie. That the thing about it was a really good movie. It was a very good Texas. Is it like Texas? Yes.
Yeah.
Chainsaw, yes. Massacre, yes. So it's a Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And so I don't know how anyone could not like this movie. The unrated version's better, obviously, because it's not censored. They were going to make this movie NC-17, so they had to cut down the scenes.
Really?
Yeah. And, I mean, there's just so much to like. I mean, namely, Arlie Ermy is the sheriff, the quote-unquote sheriff. You know, he's really, really good. He's so entertaining and yet so evil at the same time. He's a lot better than any other family member in the entire series. I mean, the entire series has had kind of like mixed family members. Like, they'll have one guy and he quotes Shakespeare, and it's like, oh, that's stupid. And then you have another guy, the hitchhiker. He's pretty good, but none of them compare to Arlie Ermy as the sheriff. Do you agree with that, Safi?
Yeah, he's a great character actor, and really, character actors are very valuable people because they add so much color to a otherwise just same old movie. I mean, you have a movie and you might have really famous actors and actresses in it. I'll put like Rear Window, for example, very famous for Jimmy Stewart and Grace Kelly. But then you have that housekeeper who comes in and she does everything for Jimmy Stewart, and she is a character actress. And I mean, she adds so much to the movie. And it's just like these movies, this guy, in his way and in his part, he adds so much to it, even more like what Marco says, than the main family involved in all the killing and weirdo horror. You know, horror isn't just about making you jump. You know, they say jump scares. You've heard that term.
Those are terrible.
Those are like I don't know, eating a piece of candy or something. Gives you a quick taste thrill, but then it's over. Horror is something that you see that lasts in your mind. It's a lasting impression of dread and fear and ugliness, and like, how could this be? That's horror. And
well, it's also a feeling of discomfort.
Yeah.
Where a character walks into a place they shouldn't walk into and stuff like that. And honestly, this movie, it's not the best horror movie, but honestly, Arlie Ermy really makes the movie. Him and Leatherface, they're the stars, just like the remake. And I will say a weak point is that the main girl, Chrissy, she's not that good. Like, she doesn't really talk much because she's kind of bad. Like,
Well, she keeps doing dumb stuff. I was kind of shocked. You know, you think one moment she's really trying to survive, and she's a survivor, and it's going to happen that she's going to get away, but she keeps, like, it's almost like she just keeps repeating the same mistakes over and over. And she doesn't, like Marco said, she doesn't say much either. And I don't know, she's kind of
she was kind of weak.
yeah, she doesn't, there's like an element missing from her acting, and I don't know if it's all her fault or they didn't give her anything.
I don't know, because she's a famous actress. She's been in a lot of stuff.
Well, I think,
but
I don't know, she looks familiar. Well, no, that's not her, but anyway, yeah, she looks familiar, but anyway,
I don't know, I just feel like she was kind of weak.
yeah.
But the thing is that the characters in general were good. The two guy characters, they were really, really good because they had really in-depth character compared to the remake, and you really wanted them to survive more than the characters in the remake. And the girlfriend of one of the characters, she was pretty good too, and unfortunately she just gets effed up pretty fast. So the characters were actually really good in this movie, I would say. I mean, you can't call them stereotypical characters like in, I don't know, Friday the 13th, the original. I mean, those are pretty weak characters, except for the final girl. But in this movie, they're all pretty equal. In fact, the girlfriend character, the main one, she could have been better. It's just that she wasn't given a lot because the movie had a fast pace for the most part, and it wanted to move forward.
Yeah.
And honestly, the pacing is good too, because instead of just killing people, they get tortured. And I thought that was good, and they also try to escape and everything. So I thought that was much better because it was a better pace of kills than in any other movie in the series, in my opinion. I would still say the music was bad. I didn't really like the music.
They just don't have it together when it comes to the music.
Yeah.
I don't know if they don't know the right people, or they don't know how to pick out music, which kind of shocks me. It seems like most people are capable of doing that because they have their own personal taste, and if they don't have the right taste to go with the movie, they might have another person on staff who does.
They need something that's more personalized and unique.
It have to be probably something country.
No.
I would think so, to go with the Texas part.
Because you have a movie like Nightmare on Elm Street, and that movie has a very unique score. The whole movie's music feels the same. Not the same, but it feels like it's a part of the same movie. You could take the music from this movie and basically put it in anything, and it would fit kinda, because it's generic music.
Very generic.
And so I really didn't like the music. But overall, this is a really good film. It's really, really enjoyable and rewatchable. I mean, you could probably rewatch it every year because it's just perfect. It's like it gives you everything that you want as a Texas Chainsaw audience member. I mean, is there one thing that it didn't give you, Safi, besides like more of the slaughterhouse?
Well, the slaughterhouse, I mean, you think of that famous book, and I've been sitting here thinking, that very famous 19th century book about the Chicago meat yards and the lifestyle, what it was like, and how awful it was for people. And I just can't think of it. I'm
Well,
sorry.
it's not relevant. So
Well, I know that, but I mean, they could have given more of a flavor of what that was like we already said. And also, I didn't like the ending because it's just my personal preference.
well, okay. So what's your rating of Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning?
Well, I'll just give it a good chicken from City Barbecue, which I might have today, or
No,
I
you
might
won't.
have sometime this week. It's always been pretty much consistently good, and it's not perfect, but I eat it every time. I really enjoy it. I don't have to have any sides or anything with it. I just eat it the way it is. I don't even eat it with barbecue sauce. I just eat it. It's so good, and I'll give it that. So that's what, and a horror movie should be something that you like, and pretty much, and like everything that we've mentioned, like it has horror. It isn't just a quote jump scare, a bunch of jump scares. That doesn't last and in meaning and impact. It's the horror that's what makes it a horror movie. It has a long-lasting impact on you. I mean,
It's also very satisfying because of the kills.
And you're thinking about it after it's even over.
Yeah.
About the things that happened in it. And that's a meaningful movie.
It's also
in any terms, in any kind of movie.
It's also probably one of the few horror movies where you actually want the characters to survive, which to me is important because there are so many horror movies where the characters are one-dimensional and dull, and
well, they don't develop them. It's not their fault. They don't have anything. They don't even meat on them.
Well, they do that on purpose because they don't want you to get upset that they get killed.
Well,
and it's like, well, that's not horror. I mean, and so I really like the characters in this movie in general. And it also looks great, too. I mean, we talked about how the remake, it just looked like the grass, like the dead grass outside right now. Like, that's what the whole movie looked like. It looked like dead winter grass.
Yeah.
And this movie, it's got a lot of different looks to it. They have a look from the first movie in the slaughterhouse. They have oranges, they have yellows, they have greens, they have blue. Like Blue at Night is a really good horror movie trademark for lighting. And so they have a lot of great lighting and effects in this movie. It's a really well-made horror movie. And it's underrated too because there are a lot of people and they'll look at this movie and they'll just make everything like, I don't know, like shrink down its meaning. Like the thing with the cow, people complained about that. You know, the characters, they're in a car and they accidentally run into a cow.
Which you see this when you're out west. These ranchers have their cows go across the road. They're in groups, but still.
That happens all the time.
Yep.
There's nothing like wrong about that. And there's so many other things like people complaining about the gore. It's too much. No. It's too violent.
No, and
you're not a horror fan then, are you?
And one thing that we didn't talk about, I said at the beginning, these two boys with the girlfriends, they're getting ready to go to Vietnam. They're on their way. They have their cards. They've been called up.
Yeah.
And I was thinking of, like I've seen other, like The Deer Hunter, for example, a more, I guess it's older than this movie, but you see the people getting tortured by Leatherface, and I was thinking about, God, what would be worse? This horrible torture or being in Vietnam?
Well, that's what was funny about the movie was that irony and how Arlie Ermey's character was apparently a prisoner of war.
Oh yeah, that's
and
right.
That was cool. So all the stuff that they added to give it more meaning
and flavor
was good.
Yeah.
Now, my food review is different. There was one night last year where I went out with a friend and another friend's friend, and we went to this restaurant called the Smoky Bones, and each of us had like $20 only, and so it was like, what are we gonna get? What's on the menu? What's good? It's a little over expensive. I mean, I think they had like, I'm gonna sneeze in a second, or maybe not. They had on the menu you have to pay $17 to get 3 ribs or something like that, like a 3-rib meal. And I thought, like, this is going to be kind of weak dinner. But what happened was we all looked at the menu and saw the family feast, which was $50. And since we all had like $20, we all just gave them the $20, and we got a family feast, which was a whole slab of ribs, I believe, or 2 slabs actually, 2 full slabs of ribs, pulled pork, biscuits, mashed potatoes and gravy, coleslaw, and something else, all for and drinks, I think, all for that good value, $20 each. And
Wow.
So that was a real feast. And that's like what this movie was, because this movie, it gave you everything you could have wanted. You go to a barbecue restaurant, that's all the stuff that you could want from a barbecue meal. And so that feast, this movie is a feast. It's a fan. It is kind of fan service, because what did they do, Safi? They weren't even going to make a sequel, but then they listened to the fans. The fans said, this is what we want to see, and they made what the fans wanted, like a good studio would do. They never do that nowadays. I mean, you see
it's more about what they want,
and
what they think,
and
they decide
even
what
though
others want.
Even though they're not fans, that's the other sad part. Like with the Halloween series, those people, they said that they watched every film in the series to make the first movie, and you can tell, because it felt like they didn't really understand the series at all. They were like amateurs who didn't really understand what they were doing. Whereas with this movie, it feels like they had a complex understanding. And I also learned the writer who wrote this movie, he also wrote X-Men First Class. So he's obviously a really good writer, and he added a lot to this movie. So anyways, that's this movie. So
if you like this review of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the beginning.
Oh wait, spoiler alert. You didn't like that the main character died at the end.
Well, we had a strong, it's like this in every one, and I guess it's reality. There's stronger people than others in a movie. That reflects our whole everywhere. There's always some people who are stronger than others, and nobody survived.
Yeah.
And I didn't like that.
Well, they couldn't, because then they would tell about them and the series would be over.
Yeah,
there wouldn't have been a remake. So
yeah, so there's a practical purpose behind the non-survival rate, but it's still, I guess that's just the way I am. But
I used to hate that part of the movie, but I don't anymore, because you see the movies that they make nowadays, and it's like, I would much rather take TCM The Beginning over Halloween Kills.
Oh, God.
And it was a really good kill, too. I mean, he saws her through the seat of the car, and it was a really cool moment. The sound of the chainsaw. Leatherface is a big hulking character. And one little thing I didn't like in terms of spoilers was the sheriff, he got his teeth knocked out to explain why he got them knocked out in the remake. That was one of the things people wanted to see, by the way, one of the questions. And after that, he's kind of like not in the movie. It feels like he just lays there and he's gone. He's out of the movie. Well, it turns out in real life his mother passed away, and so he was taking care of that the whole time, and so it they kind of took him out of the movie at that point, and so the last you see of him is him on the porch with his teeth knocked out. I thought that was kind of sad because I kind of wanted one last moment with him and Leatherface where they've killed everyone at the end, and then because someone has to take those bodies. I mean, Leatherface walks away and he leaves 3 dead bodies, full people probably, that they could eat, and so someone's got to go and pick them up, so it's got to be the sheriff. And so what I wonder too is what they could have done was have someone else drive the sheriff's police car to the scene, and then in editing they could add a little voiceover of Arlie Ermy saying something at the end. Maybe they could have had the car stop and he asks Leatherface if he wants to get in or something. They could have done something like that. I felt like there was a little gap at the end where you could tell something was up, why he wasn't in the movie, but still, it was a really good movie. So, Safi, please like, blah, 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 comment.
Well, tap that little like button. And if you like this video, and if you want to be a subscriber, we welcome you with open arms, because we love to have a discussion. And you may not agree with what we say, or you agree. It doesn't matter. It's not about the agreement part. It's about your thoughts about the movie and what you think a horror movie versus a jump scare, or about the movie series itself, and anything that you want to talk about. We'll welcome you with open arms. So goodbye everybody.